Hello everybody, this is Brian for Breaking Down Security, and we're going to talk about Nmap today. Nmap's a really great little tool that you can use. It's a port scanner, it's a vulnerability scanner, you can do ping sweeps with it. It's very versatile, and it's one of the first automated tools that I ever started using on a regular basis because of the power that it gave me over finding out the things in my network. And so let's get started. So as a user of Nmap, one of the first things I learned how to do is just do a regular scan. And do so, you, of course, running a terminal. You can also run it in Windows. You see Nmap for Windows. You can run it from the command line from PowerShell or what have you if you have the directory and everything. But you can also use something called Zenmap. And it doesn't matter where I do it. I'm going to scan a host on my network using a different profile. They have a number of different profiles here in Zenmap. You can, and when you do that, it shows you what's going to get scanned. It's a SYN scan and a UDP scan because I told it's a scan on UDP ports. Do it very aggressively. It's going to do a T4 and it's going to do a verbose output. That will take a few minutes. I don't want to do a UDP scan because that does take a long time. So I'll run a scan on this real quick. And you see some of the ports that are open on the box. You see good old 80. You see 445, which is Samba, the SMB ports for Windows. You see NetBIOS. You see port 22, which is odd because you've got 445 and 139 running and 22. And web services, looks like. So, you know, one of the things Nmap does is it takes a look at version detection. So I want to know what OS is running on this box, but I'm confused. I see 80, I see 445, I see 22. So now it's initiating what's called an NSE. So it's the Nessus scripting engine. So there are custom scripts that are in Nessus that can be ran to find various different things. In this case, it might do a banner grab on port 80, or it might attempt to connect on port 22 to find out what version of SSH is running on the box. 9091, if you are a torrent fan, you'll know that 9091 is the transmission port for the web GUI. And as you can see, it's finished scanning with the Windows version. You get the same output on the command line version. I will show that in a second. So what you see, see port 22 is open, SSH is running, and here's the host keys for those. When you're connecting to what appears to be a system, which you see NetBIOS is open, port 139, and what it's doing is it's looking at the 1,000 most common ports. You can make it do, actually you can go up here and go -P 1 to 65,535, but of course that's going to take a long time. I'm talking several minutes because it's having to scan all of those ports to make sure that everything, that there's a port open or not. So you see that port 80 is open, running on Apache, so Apache's running on that box, SSH, so it's a Linux box, or it could be a Windows box if somebody had compiled OpenSSH to run Windows. Samba's running on the box, so that could be either a Linux box or a Windows box because they both run on port 445. Oh, this is interesting. Look, AFP's running on the box, so it's a Apple file sharing protocol, and you see the host name right here. You see the work group, so it gives mixed signals to this host that I have here. So what comes up at the end, and you see the other ports that are open. You see Apache web services are running there, and you see like I run uTorrent web UI on there, and then there's transmission management server. And what comes up is the MAC address shows that it's owned by Synology, and in this case, that's correct. That's my Synology NAS, and I use a NAS on my network from Synology. So You find out a lot of good information from the scan. Sometimes it'll tell you the Linux kernel that's running, and you can do even bigger. Let me go over here to the command line. You can do a -O on that. If you're 2, actually, I like to do a verbose output. Actually, you can do a verbose output, and you get a lot of what you see here. Otherwise, it'll just do a really simple. Oh, I forgot. Some commands in Nmap require root. So what you're going to get here is you're going to have it go through, and it's going to scan those 1,000 ports again, and then it's going to try to figure out what OS it is. And of course, like we saw in the original, where it told me it's running anywhere between Linux version 2.6 and 2.636. And if you run a verbose mode, I run double verbose, you can run single verbose. Depending on the command you're running with Nmap, 1 or 2 V's actually give you more output. So this is the TCP fingerprint that it used to determine what was the host the host was running. So it found out that it is in fact running some version of Linux based upon all the variables that are inside of this. Now, if you do a scan on, and you know that for a fact, let's say this came up, and my Synology NAS is of course running a Linux kernel, but let's say Nmap came up and said, you're running Solaris 10 on that box, or Solaris 7. And here's the fingerprint that we figured out how that works. Well, that's not correct. So what you would do if you had the time and you wanted to do this, you can send this off to the folks over. You can send it over to Gordon and Fyodor. Fyodor is the guy who created it. You can submit the TCP fingerprint to him and go, hey, Nmap was incorrect. Or sometimes you'll get a TCP fingerprint for, say, a Linux version. And I did this one time where it couldn't tell what it was, but I knew it was a Linux box. So I sent the TCP fingerprint to them because something on the system was causing it to not function correctly. Like it said it was a Red Hat 4 box when in fact it was Red Hat 5, something like that. And you see that it's pretty fast. I mean, doing one host, doing a detection took 6.3 seconds, which is not bad. So let's see, what else? Let me go look at my script here. Yeah, some of the functions of it, it's a port scanner, it's a vulnerability scanner. There's about 450 different scripts that I want to do a part 2 on this, so part of that's going to be talking about the NSE scripts. You can do ping sweeps, you can do ARP scanning, the version detection I told you about. It shows you, over here it showed you what version of Red Hat or OpenSSH was running, 5.8p1, or it'll show you which version of Samba or Netatalk is running, which is important because if you find out they're running version, say 5.5p1 of OpenSSH, there may have been a severe vulnerability in 5.5 that required them to go to 5.6, but if this system doesn't have that, if you're on a penetration test or if you're responsible for making sure systems on your network are patched, that could be a warning flag that, hey, you need to patch your systems. Or if you're on a pen test, you'd be like, score, I can use this to gain remote code execution or gain access to the box through a vulnerability in OpenSSH. I'm not saying there was one, but that's always a possibility with any software you're using. So Nmap, the program comes with several additional programs like NDiff. So if you take regular Nmap scans of your network and you want to make sure that nothing is major is changed on a server, for instance, let's say I scanned 10.0.0.2 now and all these ports come up that you see over here, and I scan it the next day and then all of a sudden a couple thousand ports are open on that box. That NDiff will allow you to take 2 different scans that you've saved and compare them and find out what the difference is, which is important if you're in an environment that requires that. Another big program I like is called NCAT or NetCat if you're an old school gentleman or lady. they call it Swiss Army knife of tools. You can do all kinds of things with it. You can set up listener ports on a server and do troubleshooting. You can do banner grabs with it. It's really a lot of good things. You can actually set up a rudimentary HTTP server by sending a file to it, and then when somebody connects to it, it'll automatically send that file over to them. There's a lot of information on that. That would almost be a two-part video thing for it too, because there's just so many use cases you can use for Netcat. It's very powerful. Use it to pivot between systems if you're a pen tester, because it's I think it's included in a lot of systems these days. So nping, I haven't had a lot of experience with nping. I assume it's like hping, where you can create custom packets that can be used. You can create buffer overflows with those kinds of things. It says, according to the documentation, you could do Ethernet frame generation. That's something I'm kind of interested in doing, so I may end up doing some research on that and maybe doing a video on it. But if you needed to create packets, that's a tool you can use if you don't have hping available. Some of the typical scans you're going to see on Nmap. You can probe for versions, so you run Nmap, and basically what this did over here, I think the -A is also like -SV. Let's go Nmap, and let's see, -A enables OS detection, version detection, scanning, and traceroute. Okay, so it'll do all that stuff. So basically, -SV is like A but on steroids. Or A is steroids. SV will just probe for the different versions of the applications on the server. PN, I like PN a lot if I'm scanning a box or scanning a network and I'm not sure that box is online. You do a -PN, let's say 10.0.0.202, and it will find out, it'll skip the ping process, because what happens is Nmap goes out and does a ping, and if it sees a ping, then it will scan the box. But let's say you've got a server that doesn't respond to ping on purpose, and you want to scan it anyway. You put in the -PN, and it will automatically skip the ping part and automatically begin, doing the port scanning on the box. So see, host is up, but it says all 1,000 ports are filtered. Now I know for a fact, this is my network, there's no host on 202. What happened was the router noticed that it was somebody was sending something to it, and it just filtered the ports. So there's nothing really there, but the router dropped it because there's nothing to route to. So some of the other ones, there are a number of different ones. I'm going to go through these probably on the next video, because that whole section on scripting and then output. The only other one those are going to take a little time. I want to explain those properly, and I want to explain those in detail if possible. The only other one that I do on a regular basis is UDP scans, and that's because I find when I'm at work, I have some servers that I am making sure, let's say NTP is open, so they, PCI requirements, or NTP is running on the box, NTP client, and it's going out to the server. So 123's got to be open on the NTP server. So I do a scan for NTP on that box. On a router, I want to make sure SNMP is running, so my traps occur. Maybe I want to find out if somebody set up an NFS share on a box. So a lot of these different protocols run on UDP, and you can do a scan with Nmap for UDP. The problem is it takes a long time to do. According to RFC 1812, you can only send 80 UDP packets every 4 seconds, and if you exceed that, then you incur an additional penalty. And as you can see, 65,000 possible ports. You're trying to do a UDP scan. Can take a long time, so you want to be kind of judicious about your UDP scanning, unless you've got a lot of time. Unless you have a lot of time. So I wanted to go back, talk a little bit about the history. It came out in Frac magazine in 1997. Gordon Theodore Lyon created it. Very, very famous gentleman. He's well regarded in information security circles. It's quite popular. It shows up in several movies, including Matrix. I think I saw it on Alias, which was a show on ABC here in America, a few times. Gordon actually likes it if you have seen Nmap in a movie. If you take a screenshot of it and send it to him, he enjoys getting those. So that's all I want to talk about for now. I will probably have another one talking about the scripting portion. There's almost 450 different scripts utilizing Lua, which is a programming scripting language that Nessus takes advantage of. And it's very powerful. It's easy to read. Unfortunately, I don't really have a lot of experience with it, so I need to spend a little more time familiarizing myself with it. But hopefully, by me familiarizing myself with it, you can familiarize yourself with it. So that's all I've got for now. We'll talk about output as well as some other switches that are very important. Let's see, talk about script arguments. Those are going to be all part of NSE, the scripting engine. You can specify port ranges, of course. And you can also, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. As you can see, there's a ton of information in here. So I hope you'll come back. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to go to our Facebook fan page. It's Breaking Down Sec, facebook.com/breakingdownsec. You can also find me at Twitter. I'm at Brian Break. You can also find Mr. Betcher. He is at Betcher Pwned. That is him. He's a hilarious gentleman. And I hope this was helpful. And like I said, if you have any questions, we love talking to you, and we will help you out in any way we can. Thank you. Have a great week.